Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Before we get too far into the video, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button, that really helps to get my channel promoted. I really appreciate that. So it's getting to be towards fall, and I start thinking about things like the mountains and elk bugling and stuff like that. And so I thought I might make some kind of nature-related stuff. And I've done some elk heads in the past, and today I think I'm going to do a deer head. In relative detail that's kind of stylized, kind of like linear. So I adapted it from some clip art that I saw, and I'm going to mount it with a smoky quartz, an 8mm smoky quartz faceted stone, kind of up in the antler area, and frame it with some thickish square wire. So I think it'll turn out nice. I hope so. We'll see. But before we get started on that, I wanted to thank some people. I have a new patron. Her name is Dawn M. Thank you for signing up, Dawn. I appreciate your support. I think you'll find that people over on Patreon are a super nice group with lots of knowledge and who are willing to share their knowledge and expertise on various things. It's come to be a really nice community that I really appreciate. So thanks to all of my patrons, including my new ones, who've made that such a nice place. Thank you for that. The other group is my YouTube subscribers, and we just passed 13,700, I think. That's awesome, and I appreciate it. I also really appreciate the nice comments, as well as the financial support, like the Buy Me a Coffees and the Super Thanks. Those really help with the cost of materials, so thank you for that. All right, well, let's get started on this deer head. This is one of my design idea notebooks, which are available on my merch store if you're interested. I found in recent years that if I sketch up a design in advance, it helps me to come out with a better outcome. So these newer ones also have some conversion charts on the back. This particular version has fractions of an inch to decimals to millimeters, which I find very useful. There's another one that has American wire gauge to millimeters too. So let's see how I sketch up some stuff here. It's got a nice grid background, which helps me to keep things sort of symmetrical. So, alright, so this drawing doesn't look that great, but I think when I make it out of wire it's going to be pretty cool. So, like I said, I'm going to have I have this 8mm smoky quartz right here, which is going to go over the top like that, and then I think I'm going to use 18 gauge round wire for this, but I'm going to start with the center of his head here and work my way outwards kind of, and then add in the antlers as we go. So we're going to have to make lots of little shapes and solder them together to get the detail that I want. His nose, I may use a piece of 18 gauge sheet or something like that to make it solid. As well as maybe for his eyes too. I'm not sure yet. But either way, I'm going to start with the wire outline, and we'll go from there. So I think I made this in advance so we could focus on the design of the deer head. If you're interested in doing a setting for a bezel setting for a faceted stone, I'll put a link up here for you, and you can check that out. But we're not gonna be going over that one in this one. So. I'm going to add some sort of veil at the top. I just kind of sketched one in. I don't know if that's the kind I'm going to use or not, but we'll see. But let's start with the head here. So I need some 18 gauge round wire. And I drew this to the scale that I wanted it to be. So I think we can basically, I think I'm going to start with this inside part here like that. Maybe two pieces. So this piece here and this piece there. If you've never been to my channel before, I use a lot of hard silver sheet solder and a liquid flux, which I dribble on or spray on depending upon my particular need. And my torch is a Silversmith model, which is a great torch. I really like it. And do that to accommodate for that middle part. And then we'll measure this to measure how long that one should be on the other side, and that'll help us to get a pretty close size. For areas where I need a really sharp bend, I may file a notch here and then solder it closed in order to create a more angular bend, especially up here in the antlers and the tips of the ears. So, oh, I was going to use 12 gauge square for this, which is 2.01 millimeters, and 18 gauge round, which is 1.02. For those of you overseas. And this is going to be just a lot of piecing together for this one until the end when we have to do some putting that stone in and everything. I sort of like doing stuff like this. Not everybody does, but I do. So right in the middle there, it comes down a little bit, so I'm going to make a slight bend there. And then these other ones bend up pretty sharply, so let's see if I need to, I don't know that I need to file those ones in order to get them to bend sharp enough. We'll see. That. And this other piece we need to make a shape like that to solder to it. So let's do that next. Okay, so if I put that in the center there, so about here, here, and here is where it needs to bend to make little slight angles. That's pretty good, I think. So we can kind of just make a mark right here, right there. We'll see if we can cut those off. I think that's pretty good. Let's line those up and solder those. I do something called pick soldering, where I pick up a little bit of solder on the end of my pick, and it's a really useful skill. So if you're interested in seeing how to do that, I'll put a link up there for you. Doing some relatively delicate wire work here, so I'm not going to use very big solder. Pretty small little pieces. Let's flux this. We're kind of in the ballpark there. I think we need to make this the top of his head, so we'll have to trim these off just a little bit. This is kind of in the right spot. Right there. Like that. You wouldn't necessarily have to start at the center like this if you didn't want to, I wouldn't suppose. Here is where the ear is going to attach. So I can cut those off right about there. Should we add his mouth on next? I think maybe. So if I want it to be, you know, a relatively sharp angle, if I file a little bit of a notch there. When I go to bend it there, I can bend it a little more sharply. Okay, so I'm going to solder those portions where I made the sharp bend, and then we'll cut it off to the right length and hook it to the rest of it there. So I think let's make an ear next. So in order to get these nice pointy ears, I think let's file a notch. Let's cut them like twice as long as that. So about there, about there. I'll cut two pieces so we have both ears. Go ahead and file a notch there. About like that. So let's solder those ones so they don't move anymore. Got these kind of like that, and then right here and here about, they bend inwards. So let's do that and see how that looks. Kind of like that, and then right about here and here they bend inwards like that. So let's do that and see how that looks. Might have to downsize that a little bit. Okay, so I had to run an errand, so I'm back now, and I went ahead and made the second ear. So really, let's put those on, and then we can put the little inside part of the ear in. That worked okay. Pick up a little tiny bit of solder here. Get this other side. I think you can probably see why pick soldering is a useful skill for this kind of a thing. If you're piecing together something sort of complicated. Should we give some volume to his face now? I think we need to. So maybe do this one that goes here and then that way. So let's just, actually, let's file this one flat. It doesn't need to be very long, just a slight bend. I was curious to see whether I could get a good enough bend like this without doing the filey thing, and I think yeah. Let's cut that off. Let's do a notch like we did before. That way we get a really nice sharp angle like that. That's about right there. Okay, so let's get that soldered closed, but let's make a second one while we're at it. So we can use this as a guide to how long to make this one. That's not what I was trying to do. Okay, notice those aren't the same length, but it doesn't really matter at this point. I can cut them off to the same length after I get these soldered. Oops. Got a little flux on my drawing. Okay. Do I want to bother with these little tiny ones that go off like this? Maybe. Let's do the antlers, and then we'll see. These are basically a series of triangles that are bent. So let's make some long skinny triangles and see how that works. So I got some points there. Now let's cut these in the middle. So these ones can be pretty short. Losing my pick. You'd think after a while you'd start setting it in the same place each time, but no. I'm just going to do the same thing over and over again, so I'm going to make these off camera and then we'll solder them all together on camera. I think I have them all made, but I may need to do some adjusting. It seems to me the first ones I have to put on, if I look at the picture, are these ones right here. I may, based on how these look after I solder them together, I may have to file them and cut them a little bit shorter, so we'll see. But let's get those ones attached. If you saw that, but that one soldered, it wicked together, so I'll get this one out of the picture for a moment. With a little luck, I pulled it back apart. See if we can get it to solder better. That's reasonably good. So sometimes you can salvage those when they suck together like that. Sometimes you can't. That one I was able to, I think. Got that. Let's see if I file those down a little bit, how they look. Okay, so I have these ones, which I think are going to go about like that. So, a couple of things you could do. I could use a marker, or I could just make a little scratch on here. Let's try and get those on there without messing anything else up. We'll see. I need to consider the size of my bezel here, because this I want to go in between there. So I may need to spread those out just a skosh. Okay, for his eyes and his nose, I'm going to use some little pieces of 18 gauge sheet, I think, if I can find some. Chances are I have some scraps, a piece of scrap right there. So. So I cut some little eyes out, kind of diamond shapes, and fit them in there. I'm going to do the same thing I've been doing so far, just pick soldering it. So let's make sure I have some little pieces of solder here still. Alright, I think I have all of the components for the deer head, including the bezel there. And we need to make out of, I think I'm going to use 12 gauge square wire. I'm going to grab it with my flat nose pliers here so it doesn't twist as much. Let's see if we can make kind of an oval. Square wire has a tendency to kind of turn on you because it's trying to find an easier way to bend. So you have to do a little bit of adjusting as you do it. Just want to get it in the ballpark here. It'd be nice if it was touching on both ears and the tops of both antlers up there, and the chin down there. I think we might be able to do that. Okay, ideally I'd like to solder it chin down here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here. I think we got those all attached. The bail I made has two slots, one for the chain, one for the ring that this is going to be on top of. And so I think we'll put kind of a 3/4 ring there made out of, I think, 16 gauge maybe. Whenever you're soldering something big to something small, like this ring to this overall pendant, most of the heat needs to go where most of the mass is, at least until the very end, at which point then you can kind of focus on that spot and bump it up to the soldering temperature for both of them. Although I jumped the gun a little bit on that one, I think. Let's cool it off. We'll slide this over and then we'll solder that last little piece. And I can rest my neck, which is starting to really hurt. And then we'll polish it and set that stone. Alright, so we got this one. We can just kind of bend that way. I think that'll look nice. So I don't really want to get any solder flowing on this bail, so I'm going to focus almost all of the heat over here until the very end and just hopefully nail that last little bit on that ring on this side. You could use easy solder or something at this stage if you wanted to. Solder always flows to where it's hottest generally, so if I stay away from that bail, it's not really going to stick to it. Since it's a completely separate piece, see this whole thing pretty hot. We'll take a peek at that and see how we did. That thing's still moving, so I think we're alright. So let's let him pickle for a while and then we'll get him polished and set. So we got everything kind of polished up. The stone is ready to be set. And I do this slightly differently than some people do. I use my chain nose pliers as my setting tool instead of a bezel pusher, but I use this to do that part. And so we're just going to go straight up against that stone all the way around. I'm just going to roll it around. Once you have that kind of position, then you can switch over to the rounded part here. And I'm just going to rub that top edge and really kind of lay that down. Okay, and then the last step I'll do is I'll take a blue abrasive wheel on the rotary tool and smooth that top of that bezel out. But overall, that's kind of what I was looking for. So I think it's fun. It's kind of stylized. So, alright, I'll take some better pictures and put them at the end. Alright, well that was a deer head pendant. I hope you enjoyed that one. If you did, make sure to hit the like button before you leave. And take a moment and check out my channel page because I have getting close to 370 videos now, so there's a lot of different content up here. I've tried to do a whole bunch of different things from different skill levels, so I think no matter where you're at, you'll probably find something interesting to look at. So watch a few videos and come back and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you. The other thing is check out the video description down below. There's some important links like my ebook. If you want to get that, that's a great way to have access to all of 2023's videos with some annotations to go along with it and some materials lists and difficulty levels and the original sketches. So I think that's a useful tool and a nice way to support the channel. There's also my merch store link down there where you can get one of those nice design idea books, which I find so handy. A link to my Patreon and some other important links too. So check those out. Come back and visit again, and take care. Happy silversmithing.